this is Jane Douglas for GameSpot UK. We are here at Codemasters Guildford Studio to talk to the makers of Bodycount, which is the FPS spiritual successor to the PlayStation 2's Black. Okay, so give us the high-level view for someone who's not familiar with Bodycount. What are we looking at here?
So Bodycount is a very, very pure and focused arcade shooter. We're not building a military sim or anything like that. We're building something that's quite light in tone, quite fantastical in the way that we built it. And really, what we've tried to do is build the gun experience. So that is the feeling of firing the weapon, powerful, violent weapons that are tough to tame, and then actually what happens when you fire a bullet. You know, what happens to the environment around you, which is where our shredding tech comes in, and just the kind of general intensity and the exhilaration of pulling the trigger.
Okay, so first of all, tell us about the shredding tech, because that's, like you say, key to the Bodycount experience.
Sure. So shredding for us is a tactical thing. It's not a superficial thing. It's not you blow a hole in a wall just because it's fun, even though it is. You actually can drill through cover to get at your opponents, and they can do the same to you. So what you find quite quickly is that changes the pace of the game quite dramatically, and it keeps you moving around a lot more. You don't just sit behind impenetrable cover and stay there for the duration. It also changes things when you get inside buildings. So you get walls shredding down and whole buildings opening up so that you can see through 5, 6, 7 rooms in a row and get lines of sight much deeper through the environment than you could before. So it changes the single player, it changes the multiplayer experience. It's a purely tactical gameplay device.
Okay, also key but harder to get a feel for without the hands-on is the lean cover mechanic. Tell us a bit about that.
So cover lean for us is our attempt to introduce a cover system that's not a sticky cover system into an FPS. Now, there's obviously certain ways of doing things, and the left trigger is a particularly kind of dodgy area to get into changing because people have got so much learnt behaviour. But what we've basically done is make it so that when you squeeze that left trigger and you hold it all the way down, you root to the spot. But what actually happens at the same time is you keep a full range of movement on both sticks, which means that you can duck and weave about, peek out from the side of cover and open up all of these little lines of sight as the environment degrades. We've kept in a strafe system so that if you partially release the trigger, you can still strafe iron sight around the environment. But really, the cover lean is our kind of central gameplay device.
And is that a reaction to something you don't like about the cover systems in other kind of more traditional shooters?
It is a bit, yeah, because it feels really odd to have to sidle out and slide out from cover, take a few shots and then slide back in again. It just doesn't feel right. So this way, it feels like you're actually hunkered down, you're in cover, but you're popping out, leaning out to actually look around and assess the threat and then try and take guys down from a distance. So it's just a much more tactile way of navigating around our environments and actually playing the game.
But it does take some getting used to, as we found.
It does, yeah. We've had that a lot from people. For us, it's a case of whether we have sort of the courage of our convictions to stick with what we think is an interesting new system, or whether we just copy what other people have done. And I'm really loath to do the latter because there's no originality in that. There's no innovation in it. What we've seen from people who've played the build a lot and as they get used to the game is that actually you really see them using it and you really see them taking to it. So I'm pretty confident that once we smooth the edges off it, it's going to be really interesting new mechanic that hopefully other people will want to copy as well.
Okay, and you've got this Intel kind of currency. Tell us how you spend it, what you can buy with it.
So as you take people down during the game, you get intel, it's these blue orbs, yellow orbs if you take them down in a particularly skillful way, say shredding through something to get at someone. That fills up what's known as your operative support button. And basically you've got a range of different upgrades that we deliver to you throughout the game, whether it's access to airstrikes or explosive shreddable bullets, which actually shred enemy characters, temporary invincibility, and then sort of additions to your radar so that you can mark out people better in the environment. So these things layer up as you go through the game, and actually the way we've balanced the game is such that you will need to rely on it to progress efficiently at some point. So it's very central to our core gameplay.
Do you see Bodycount as part of this movement away from those kind of realistic shooters? You've got like a Bulletstorm now and then Brink.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're certainly closer to that kind of grouping than we are to say a Call of Duty. I mean, we've got some fairly standard feeling things in the game. We've got a recognisable, familiar weapon experience that we've put a lot of love and attention into, but it's not fantasized or sci-fi or anything like that. But we're not constrained by reality, so we've been able to push it in a more unique direction. And certainly there was absolutely no motivation for me or for the team to just produce another sort of dusty brown FPS. It's not what we set out to do, and it's not what we've produced.
Okay, let's bring it back to the guns. It's a spiritual successor to Black, and so tell us about what we'll be using, what kind of firepower we've got.
Well, what we've tried to do with Bodycount is not build a weapon arsenal where you've got the rubbishy weapons at one end and the ninja weapons at the other. We've actually gone for quite a small set of weapons, and we've really polished each and every individual one so that they're all valid choices, but it just becomes about what you prefer. So we've got sort of short-range assault rifles in there, and long-range things that work in the distance, like a G36, which is what we've shown typically in the earlier builds. We've got things like the Super 90 shotgun, which has a very dramatic but short-range effect on both the NPCs and the environment. And then we've added a couple of weapons of our own at the end. So the target, we've looked at a lot of sort of bleeding-edge technology and tried to adapt that and build our own weaponry as well. So they've got some pretty impressive equipment that you get access to at the end of the game. And then on top of that, I think I maintain one of the things people are going to like the most about this game is our impact grenades. So we've got a range of explosives in there that just trigger these amazing stunt deaths and explosions and shredding, and they're a ton of fun. So I very much count them as part of the arsenal.
I was going to bring that up. The double tap grenade is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've been using that for about 18 months now, and I'm still not bored of it. So that tells me it's quite a good gameplay device.
You touched briefly on the narrative. You've got is it an episodic kind of structure to the plot, like 3-act structure?
It's a 3-act structure. The first act is the longest act, and we accelerate through the game. So you get the feeling of building to a crescendo as the game sort of comes to completion. First act is set in Africa. It's all non-specific locations. We've sort of, again, fantasized the environment slightly as well and not tied them to real locations. Act 2 is all set in Asia, so you tend to get a lot more kind of neon, nighttime, raining, Blade Runner-y type look to it. And then the final act is a sort of purpose-built island stronghold, which is where you go up against the target in their own front doorstep and you sort of take the fight to them.
How has it been developing this FPS for just consoles? How has that changed how you work with it?
Well, there's a certain amount of liberation in that because you obviously don't have to take account of the sort of precision that you would have with a PC SKU. Really, for us, this whole project's been about focus, and one of the early decisions we made was that focus should extend to the platforms we're producing it for, and that literally is PS3 and 360. We couldn't do it on a Wii. It's the wrong audience anyway, and to be honest, that we're pushing a lot of physics about in this game, and it just wouldn't hold up. Equally, we would need to give that PC version to make it good a hell of a lot of attention, and we just wanted to pour all of that attention into 360.
Okay, and obviously you had Stuart Black earlier on, who left earlier this year. How's it been since his departure?
Well, when Stuart left, we got a lot of the core fundamental bits nailed anyway in the game. He and I were working fairly closely anyway. The rest of the team structure is exactly the same. So it's not been a dramatic effect. Obviously, it changes things. I suspect there are things that I've done differently that he would not have done, but the fundamental structure of the game, what it is, that kind of gun experience and keeping it as a sort of light, fun arcade shooter, we've stayed really true to that, and it's pretty much done now.
Okay, great. Well, I mean, it's pretty much done, and we haven't seen a great deal of the multiplayer. What can you tell us about it?
So we've got deathmatch, we've got team deathmatch, and we've got specific co-op modes which are not based on the single-player campaign. What we've really found with particularly the deathmatch modes is the nature of the levels and the shredding and these arena-based levels really changes the experience. So actually, the shredding becomes even more key in multiplayer because you start with a very pristine environment, and as it shreds down and as it degrades, you find that the way that you use cover, the amount of cover that's available to you, and the lines of sight that have opened up throughout the level are completely different. So even over a 10-minute deathmatch, actually the game itself adapts and changes and never quite changes in the same way twice. So it feels quite fresh.
Okay, great. Thanks for joining us, Andy. If you could just give us the platforms and the release date, please.
Bodycount is coming out on the PS3 and 360, and it's launching summer this year.
Thanks very much.